Honored to welcome to the Cross Connection Georgia gubernatorial candidate and founder of national voting rights organization Fair Fight, Madam Stacey Abrams. Thank you so much for being here. I know you're very busy on the campaign trail, so we are honored to have you here today.
It is an honor to be with you. Thanks for inviting me.
Always nice to have a fellow Georgian on the program. And I want to get right into it, Stacey, because nearly 4,000 soldiers and an undisclosed number of National Guardsmen from Georgia are deploying to Europe amid the Russian invasion of Ukraine, as you know. Their purpose is to reassure allies. But a lot of people don't realize the real life cost of this. They're dealing with the impact of this war right there in Georgia. And this is impacting some of your would-be constituents. So what impact has this had on the people of Georgia?
I think first and foremost, it has reminded Georgians that we have 13 military installations. I was recently in Warner Robins, the location of an Air Force base, and today I'm in Midway, which is also a very heavily military community. And what we know is that whether you're being deployed or you're a veteran, our lives, the lives of Georgians are on the line. But the reason they are being deployed, the reason they are willing to stand and guard the Baltic states and Poland and Lithuania, the reason they're there to support NATO is that democracy matters, that the attack that Putin is waging against Ukraine matters, and it matters to all of us. But it doesn't diminish the responsibility we have here in Georgia to ensure that those very families have the supports and the resources they need when they get home or while their loved ones are deployed. And that's why I'm fighting so hard to make certain that the governor is doing her job, should I be lucky enough to become that person, that we are paying attention to the needs of not only our military deployed, but their families with housing, with access to jobs, making sure that the educational system that they're part of works, but that we're also thinking about the homeless military veterans that unfortunately are on our streets. And when I was in Warner Robins recently, I met with a young woman who's doing her best to end veteran homelessness. And that is a pledge that I intend to make as the next governor of Georgia.
Well, I appreciate what you're saying, because I do think there are parallels to what's happening really around the globe with democracy being so fragile. It's challenging for those of us in the media because we're so focused on Ukraine, yet there are many domestic issues right here at home. For example, Georgia Republicans recently advanced a sweeping piece of legislation that would, among other things, empower this State Bureau of Investigation to investigate election issues. This is all based on the ridiculous lie from Donald Trump and the long-term voter suppression that the incumbent governor, Brian Kemp, has practiced for years. You know better than anyone. They're trying to restrict outside funding to election offices and open voters' paper ballots for public inspection. These are all really big challenges. So I'm curious, what's the plan to overcome a lot of the rampant voter suppression that we're seeing so heavily in Georgia?
Our first responsibility is to acknowledge that what is happening in Ukraine is absolutely a vast difference of degree. This is the malicious murder of people. But the pursuit that we are watching Putin undertake is autocracy attempting to topple democracy. And that should be chilling to everyone. And we can never, ever diminish the human cost. But we also can't lose sight of the fact that it is the most grotesque experience that we are seeing on a spectrum of attacks against democracy. And there are national and international organizations that will tell you that democracy in the United States is being judged fragile because of the attacks. They are certainly less bloody, and in some ways they can seem more benign, but the malice that is embedded in denying a person the right to vote is an attack on democracy. That said, I don't want anyone to believe that we equate the malice and the grotesquerie of Putin with what's happening in the United States. But that, to your point, doesn't diminish the legitimate concerns about what's happening to democracy domestically. Right now, Georgia is considering yet another bill that would further restrict access to the right to vote, that would shift the responsibility and the ability to launch investigations for non-existent voter fraud, would limit access to resources to make certain that African Americans and Latinos and Asian Americans aren't standing in long lines, that rural communities have the resources they need. Anytime there is an attack on the infrastructure of democracy, it should concern every person, regardless of ideology or partisanship. But our solution has to be, one, voter education, and two, voter activation. There is this false narrative that if people vote, if you have high voter turnout, that disproves the existence of suppression. That's absolutely not true. Suppression exists. It exists in primaries and in the general election. But what high voter turnout does, it diminishes the effectiveness of voter suppression. And so our most potent weapon is to overwhelm the system with our presence and to elect people who actually support our participation. And that is one of the reasons I'm running for governor, to not only galvanize folks to know that they have this right, but to make certain that as the next governor of Georgia, we fortify that right and we roll back these voter suppression activities that we've seen undertaken in the last few years.
And I do take your point. There is a vast difference between what's happening in Ukraine and what's happening here domestically. However, I do want to remind our viewers that the battle here in America was absolutely bloody over the years, and certainly lives were lost in that battle. You, of all people, definitely know that. I want to shift gears a little bit because you just made an appearance on Star Trek, and this is a show that you've referenced as shaping your perspective as president of United Earth. That's what you were on Star Trek. Now, you may not be president yet, but you are currently running for governor of Georgia. What's the latest on your campaign? Like, how would you describe the biggest challenge facing your campaign right now?
Well, I encourage people to go to our website, StaceyAbrams.com, to read the policies and the ideas that we have for Georgia. And I would say the most important challenge we face is making certain that people believe that vision and promise really exist for them. For too many Georgians, the last 4 years under this governor has been a march towards ineptitude and inaction, and that's inexcusable. Too many Georgians have fallen behind, and while he may tout these high-level numbers that make sense for those who are already doing well, too many Georgians are falling behind. When I was in Cuthbert, Georgia, earlier this week, I met a woman who introduced me whose aunt perished. She died because the hospital that could have saved her life shut down in 2020 because this governor refuses to expand Medicaid. This is not a partisan issue. Mike Pence expanded Medicaid. Kentucky expanded Medicaid. Ohio has expanded Medicaid. The refusal to accept billions of dollars to save Georgia lives is one of the reasons this campaign is so essential, and one of the reasons my victory is going to be so important, because it's an opportunity for Georgians of every stripe in every part of our state to finally feel like we're part of one Georgia, and that the governor sees all of us and wants all of us to be successful, not just his cronies, not just his powerful friends, and not just the places and the people he likes.
Well, you know, it's interesting how you put that, because you are very much a national figure. You're credited with helping to shift the power of the federal government. And so it's curious how you will strike the balance of being this national figure, but also a Georgian first. You know, Georgia is a state that's frequently keeps growing more racially and ethnically diverse. Those folks certainly helped shift the power of the federal government as well. How will you strike that balance of these two competing, you know, national versus local?
Well, Tiffany, you know that we all often live with multiple identities. I am a writer. I am a public advocate for voting rights and for civic rights. I am a small business owner. I'm an attorney, and I manage to be all of those things at once. I am a Georgian first, and I am running to be the governor of the state, but I can never forget where this state sits in the national zeitgeist. It is because of Georgia that we have Senators Raphael Warnock and Jon Ossoff. It is because of Georgia that the American Rescue Plan lifted children out of poverty for the first time in generations. It is because of Georgia that we have a president of the United States who's able to sign into law infrastructure bills that are going to pour money into the state. And while the current governor likes to take credit for spending the money, I want to give credit where credit is due for where the money came from. And it came from Democrats, and those Democrats came from Georgia. And so my responsibility is to celebrate Georgia, to see Georgia, and as governor to serve all of Georgia, not just Metro Atlanta, but the entirety of the state. And that's why I'm going to be in Augusta and in Midway today. It's why I've been across the state and will continue to crisscross the state, sharing this message of one Georgia with every single person, because I'm a Georgian first, and I want one Georgia that gets to rise together.
And it's a good reminder that Georgia is not just Atlanta. There are a lot of communities all throughout Georgia that you hit your first campaign as well. I have to ask you before I let you go, it's Women's History Month. Were you to be elected governor of Georgia, you'd be the first black woman to do so, not just in the Peach State, but in America. And you'd be in good company. Other history maker Shalonda Young was just confirmed to run President Biden's budget office. Ketanji Brown Jackson, if confirmed, will be the first black woman on the Supreme Court. And of course, Madam Vice President Kamala Harris. I'm just curious your thoughts. What message would your election send to future barrier breakers and history makers?
That it's possible, that ambition is not a dirty word, that we should want more for ourselves, want more for our communities, want more for our people. And we can cast people in multiple ways. As a woman of color, I think about what it means to be someone who sees someone who looks like me standing for these offices. As a black woman, I absolutely understand how remarkable this can be. As a young person from the South, I know what it means to see change happen here first. And so across the spectrum, I am just honored to be an avatar for what is possible for others. And more than anything, I want to be able to do the work of making that possibility real. Because for too many, it is purely idealistic. They do not see a path. And that's because we have not had a governor who's been willing to chart that path with Georgians and to make certain we remove the barriers that block too many Georgians from being able to thrive. I intend to be a barrier breaker, not only in the history books, but certainly for the people of Georgia.
I love to hear it. Thank you so much, Stacey Abrams, and good luck to you on the campaign trail.